What's it like being an entrepreneur, running a business? What's it like whenever you see all the pizzazz out there and all the, people talking about living their best life? Let's talk about a little bit under the hood, what things actually can look like, again, when you're running your own business. Hey, my name's Blake Benz. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Good Advice Podcast. And this is the honest, transparent place where you can learn how to do business better. And if you've been thinking about quitting the job and starting the business, maybe check out this full episode and give it a second thought. Feels like I'm already talking people out of it. But yet, no, I want to talk a little bit about this last week and what things were like. Hey, before we jump into today's episode, I do have a word from one of the amazing, awesome businesses that sponsors the podcast. Check out this quick ad and we'll be right back soon. There's one single piece of advice that I give to business owners who are ready to scale their business drastically. And that's knowing exactly what you need to hand off so that you can continue focusing on what you're an expert in. It amazes me when I talk to business owners who are doing their own bookkeeping and tax prep, and worse, that they're going through all this paperwork at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, even midnight, slaving away trying to make sense of all of the numbers for their business. Business owners who are making it happen have already figured out that you can't do it all yourself. That's why I recommend Steve Lay with Equity Business Solutions. Not only is he an expert in bookkeeping and tax prep, but what I love about Steve is that he'll sit down with you and help you make sense of the value of your business beyond just reading a spreadsheet. You'll be able to make better decisions, and more importantly, you're going to save yourself the crucial time you would have spent going through QuickBooks or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever it is that keeps us up late at night. So save yourself some time and some money by giving Steve Lay a call at Equity Business Solutions, and he'll show you the value beyond your numbers. Go to equitybusinesssolutionsllc.com to find out more. So the podcasts are always unscripted. I don't do any notes or anything like that, which I don't have any issue if people do notes or they have a script, so to speak. It's just not the way that I do it. And so in the intro today, as I was talking about or thinking about what I wanted to talk about, all of a sudden I was like, is this going to turn into a don't become a business owner kind of episode? And it's not. I'm going to tell you it's not. But I do want to reveal a little bit about what it's like on the other side of things, just so that you can be in the know. Man, what a week. What a wild, crazy week this last week has been. And I'm in a good place. The business is in a good place. There's a lot of really great things happening. Some really exciting things happening in the near future for the business. Making good money. Things are just all going really well. Things are going well right now. But I want to pull what's the expression? Pull the curtain away a little bit? I don't know. Let you see behind the curtain. There it is, a little bit. So this last week on Sunday night, my wife had food poisoning, and she had food poisoning pretty bad. Monday morning, and actually I wasn't feeling super great myself, because we had just gone to like this birthday party, and I guess we had, lots of kids with fingers grabbing all the food and stuff. And I thought, maybe there was just something on the counter that we ate or something. I don't know. Well, I wasn't feeling super great myself. Monday comes and Joy, my wife, is really not feeling great, which these days she's always feeling, not super up to speed because she is, 6 months pregnant. And so she's feeling the weight of the baby and her sciatic nerve and, just the joys of all the incredible things that this amazing woman goes through to bring our new baby girl into the world. So on Monday, she was really not feeling great. So that afternoon, what happened was she was like, hey, I'm actually still feeling really run down. And we were supposed to have some friends over that night. And I was like, okay, well, should we cancel? And she was like, I really don't feel great. Well, she ended up feeling really bad that night. And so the next day, I think that afternoon, Mondays are typically a pretty busy day. So I kind of tabled everything. I have someone I work with who I had kind of given him some things to work on for the week and was kind of just delegating things out while I was out. But Monday afternoon, ended up watching the kids so that she could rest. Tuesday was my daughter's birthday, so I was already taking the day off anyway. We had a great day, but I noticed my kids were kind of run down too. And Joy was also still like really run down. Without belaboring this anymore, Wednesday run down, Thursday run down, and she's still seeming, and I'm feeling pretty fine. My kids are kind of sniffly and stuff, but because she's feeling down every day, I end up watching the kids so that she can just rest and nap. And Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, I ended up watching the kids. And we had a great time. The weather was awesome. Played outside a lot. We watched Bluey, which is, I'm pretty sure this is made for adults, just like the best kids show ever. We had a great week, a great time. However, the stress with all of this is that I basically ended up taking every day off from work so that I could watch my kids, so that Joy could rest. And it's just the nature of things. Unfortunately, when you work a 9 to 5 job, you can very easily, one second here. Okay. I thought there was a setting off here. When you work a 9 to 5 job, you can very easily take time off, get a sick day here or there or what have you. When you run a business, though, who's making those sales calls? Who's making those phone calls? Who's talking to the customer? Who's talking to the client? And some things that were happening on my end. I had one customer that we were a little behind on developing some stuff for them. We were launching a website for one customer, and that was taking a little bit longer than I wanted. I had some bills lined up to pay, and I had a couple of pretty sizable bills that I had a customer who was had an invoice who was paying on that invoice. Actually, they'd already paid on the invoice. And I was going to use that invoice to pay some of these bills. It was pretty sizable invoice too, a good 4-figure invoice. Well, the customer had paid it, but then for whatever reason, and this is a customer that has spent 20 grand with me, so there's no reason this should have happened. But for whatever reason, on this one invoice, their bank flagged it and flagged it as fraud or something. And so they didn't reverse the transaction, but they would not put it into my bank until 10 days later, which wasn't a big deal. I had plenty of cash flow. I could use money elsewhere to pay those bills, but I didn't see any of this happening because I wasn't working. I was hanging out with the fam, right? So the stress is kind of adding up a little bit. I had another customer who had an emergency with their business. I'm juggling phone calls and, kind of trying to figure all this stuff out. And I had kind of this realization when Saturday came about. It was the day of my daughter's birthday. And I had told my wife, I said, hey, if you're still not feeling good Saturday morning for my kid's birthday party, you should probably go to an urgent care because it's pretty unusual. She wakes up. She's not feeling good. She goes to an urgent care. She has the flu and she has strep throat. And I'm like, wow, goodness, you were really sick. And fortunately, the rest of us, we got a flu shot, and which she hadn't gotten one yet. And all this to say, the rest of us, I guess, dodged a bullet while she just got really sick. And then I got a little fortunate too because I ended up sleeping on the couch a couple of nights. My kids have this habit of in the middle of the night just coming in our room and just checking on us, like, "Hey, is it morning time yet?" Or this is the joy, by the way. This isn't just like are you sure you want to start a business? This is also, are you sure you want to have kids? But our kids will come in, "Hey, is it morning time yet?" "No, daughter, it is in fact 2 a.m. It is the middle of the night. So no, it is not morning time yet. Let's go back to bed." Or like, this is the one that like drives me crazy. The kids will come in the middle of the night. "Hey, can you fix my covers for me?" Because the cover's like not exactly right. And you could probably do that yourself. "No, I don't think I could." "Oh, okay. Yeah. Let me go do that." So I'd slept on the couch Thursday night and Friday night to intercept them because they have to go right by the couch to get to the bedroom so that my wife, because at this point it was like, okay, you just need some really good sleep. So anyway, I had done that thinking she would kind of feel better. But by Saturday, it was like, okay, something's going on here. Well, in hindsight, it's good that I wasn't sleeping in the bed with her because maybe I would have gotten really sick. I don't know. But this is less of a podcast episode about the random shenanigans in the Benz household. This is more about understanding how things happen when you run a business that you don't always have a safety net for. Now, I'll go ahead and just tell you this. The sooner in your business that you can have a monthly cash flow, customers who are paying a monthly fee, for me, this is, either every quarter or every 6 months. I have a consulting fee that gets charged. We have the podcast monthly fees. We have the SEO, the monthly fees with that. And so anytime you can have, that's what works for me. It's different for every business owner out there. But the sooner you can have repeatable, consistent cash flow, it will become a lot less nerve-wracking dealing with this kind of stuff because you won't feel the pressure of the wallet of, I got to get back to work. I got to make these phone calls happen. I got to get this done, what have you. I think I remember there was a day, maybe 3 years ago. I think that's about right. Yeah, 3 years ago, where it was like a crazy busy day. I was making a bunch of phone calls, sales calls, all this stuff. And I've told the story before, but my kids' church, the little youth area, they had given her a bunch of beads to like make bracelets or something, which all I got to say is you can just always tell the savvy, experienced parents and the ones who are not, because it's like, why would you give a 2-year-old a bunch of little small things that they can fit in their ears and noses, right? So I didn't think anything of it. She gets these like beads. She asked to sleep with, this is like the weird attachment that kids have too. She has this pink bead and she's like, can I sleep with this? And I'm like, sure, you can sleep with the little pink bead. Now, you experienced parents out there, you already know where this is going. So my daughter, I think she went down like for a nap. It was like a middle of the day nap. She knocks on my office door. I open the door. Yeah, what's up? Like, why are you out of bed? And she has a finger just slightly up her nose, like touching something. And then her eyes go wide. And she goes, Dad. And I'm like, what? And she just points. And I look, I have a flashlight on my desk. I flash the flashlight up. And I can see the edge of a little tiny pink bead that she has stuffed up her nose. So it's like around maybe 2, maybe 1 in the afternoon. And I'm like, let's go to urgent care. Well, at around 9 o'clock that night, we left the children's hospital, which we should have gone to originally, but we went to like 3 other urgent cares to try to get this fixed and should have gone to the children's hospital in the first place. But at 9 o'clock that night, we were in the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A getting ice cream, Dan celebrating getting this bead out of her nose. Well, that was a whole half day just gone. Now, back then, it was extremely nerve-wracking because it was like, man, what are we going to, I just lost a day of work. When you start a business, you got to prepare yourself to know you're going to be working 60, 70-hour weeks for the most part. Some people, they fall into this a little bit smoother than others. But for many of us, it's a lot of hours. You got to really start to build the momentum for the business. And these events that you don't expect happening can be really devastating to you. So my first piece of advice, like I mentioned, your most immediate area of interest is consistent, repeatable cash flow. What are people going to pay you for on a monthly or quarterly basis that will continue to feed the business so that you are able to, when these emergencies come, it's not devastating. The second thing with that too is the value of communication with your customers. I am an absolute, what's the word? Not like a freak for perfection. I can't think of the expression for it. I'm very intentional about high quality, good work with my customers. I have seen this. I've seen customers talk to me about this. I've seen customers who've mentioned competitors where they have said, "Hey, I'm really glad, you're quite a bit more expensive than these other people over here, but we want to pay for quality." And to those kinds of things, I kind of just smile and nod and, "Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you." Just because I don't really like, dogging on anybody else. But I have built that over time because I'm very intentional about this kind of stuff. I had a woman who worked for me who did some podcast work for me. We're doing some podcast editing, and it was for video podcast stuff. And she would make tiny mistakes, which is going to make me sound like a psycho. Not a big deal. I was never mean or mad at her, but there was a lot of back and forth on, "Hey, you on the subtitle, this is spelled wrong, or this is incorrect, or hey, we have a missing frame." Like when you do like a cut, but then you leave like a tiny half millisecond gap there, and so you see like the screen goes to black for just a second before it goes to the next cut, the next close up, whatever it is, stuff like that. Very simple mistakes, and all those kinds of things. It was like, "Hey, we got to fix that because our quality matters. We have to do a good job." Anytime guests come on the show, "Hey, how do I pronounce your name? I want to make sure I do it right." I just have an appreciation for doing things well. Well, when disaster strikes and there's an emergency and, you're out of the office or things aren't working well enough because you just don't have the time to sit in front of a computer or to connect with your customer, communication is really, really important. And you can do this one of two ways. One, you can reach out to your customers and let them know, "Hey, just this is a little bit of a trying time. I'm gonna be a little bit out of pocket. Here's the timeline for certain deliverables for you, or here's the next time we're gonna connect, or yada yada yada." I try to reserve those for like extreme circumstances just because I personally don't like a customer feel like I'm making excuses. So like no customers, for example, got an email from me that was like, "Hey, my wife has the flu." Nothing like that. But what it does look like for me is being proactive on the communication side of it. So I have a customer that we're building a website. We had to rebuild a website before we launched this SEO campaign. And we started that website on March 1st. Worked on it for that first week. I know there was some work done on it last week, but like the point of difficulty on it was I needed to go through the website and mark the punch list of, "Hey, this needs to be fixed. This needs to be tweaked. This needs to be changed," which now actually, as I'm talking about it, this just speaks to the processes that I didn't realize I needed that I thought I already had. And then you start to realize like, okay, there should really be a process for that, which is a whole separate conversation, by the way, of like seeing where there's opportunity to build out processes without over processing it, if that makes sense. Like where it's so regimented and rigid that there's no room for agility and just quick decision making. It's kind of like when someone is applying for a job and everyone has like the process of upload your resume. Now type everything out again. Well, for the job seeker, it's really obnoxious and tedious. You never want to have so many processes that your people feel like, goodness, there's so many things to be doing here. But I was the bottleneck. I needed to go through and see a handful of things that, hey, here's like the punch list of things that we need to revise. Well, last week I couldn't get to that. So today on the 17th, I emailed that customer and said, "Hey, your website, here's where we are with it. We have, structures put together. Foundation is there. The two main areas, because we don't do any stock photos. We really want a website to not look like it's just like a copy paste website kind of thing." So I was like, "Hey, we got to fix the stock photos and we got to fix some of the text," which doesn't, looking at the text, I thought, you know what, this doesn't fully accurately describe the business's services. And then also knowing how Google ranks things for SEO, it was like, okay, we need to revise some of this just a little bit. But I emailed that customer before they had a chance to email me. And this is really what I mean by just strong communication. If you can be proactive in the communication, it's always to your benefit because it lets the customer know that you're on it rather than them reaching out and pointing out, or asking the question, what's going on here? And now you look like the person who's like, oh, geez, sorry, here's what's going on. Let me make an excuse. My wife was sick, yada, yada. Another good example was we had another customer's website that went down. It went down. We changed host. It went down very briefly. I knew it was going to go down. And so website was going down. I didn't know it was going down until right before I got notice it was going down from the provider. And so I emailed the customer. It was like the first thing that I did and said, hey, it was like a Saturday afternoon. I said, hey, website's going to go down very briefly, just for an hour or so. Just wanted you to be aware. Nothing's wrong. It's going to be back up. It's going to be no big deal. Well, coincidentally, the customer was, for what in that exact moment on a Saturday afternoon, maybe he was excited about his new website. I don't know. He emailed me, or I texted him actually. So he texted back, oh, hey, thanks. I just saw it had gone down and I was wondering. And I thought, man, I am glad I messaged that person rather than waiting for them to message me, because again, it communicates we're on it. We got this stuff figured out. We know what we're doing. And you won't always do that perfectly. There will be things that you didn't see or that you miss or what have you. But having a strong practice of good, effective communication is always a great way to cover your bases when emergencies happen. And then the third one is just surrounding yourself with people who can pick up the slack. It's a great testament. If you're early in business, you don't have the cash to hire someone. But once you do, being able to delegate things out and, hey, can you work on this? Hey, here's some things we need to really be thinking about this week. Or, hey, I have to be out. This thing on our punch list is actually priority number one. That stuff could be really helpful too. And beyond any of that, actually, it's speaking again to having strong processes where you can actually jump back in and get after some of these things that might be a little bit more time intensive otherwise. So if you've been following the podcast long term and you were wondering, why didn't we get a newsletter out last week? Or why didn't we have any podcast episodes last week? I think I got one out on Friday. This was the reason why, was because my family was super sick. They needed me, and I just didn't have the bandwidth to do really much work at all, other than just top level conversations with customers and just making sure people are being taken care of. So that's one of the things that I like about my job, is that I can be present for my kids, present for my family when I need to be, but it doesn't make it any simpler. It's people who know me really well. I'm not a germaphobe, but I do have a bottle of sanitizer in my car during flu and cold season, because there was a time where I was at like a get together and someone was like, they were like, oh man, I'm really, they like knew someone who was really sick, who had gotten them sick recently. And they're like, oh, I'm so relieved because now I can take like some sick time off or some, which I thought that's kind of a scary job that, you're praying to get sick so you can have some time off. But the comment, somehow it got back around to me, and I was like, no, I don't want to get sick, because if I get sick, who's going to work for the family? That sounded so mafia-esque. Who's going to work for my family? I can't afford it. Can't afford to be sick. I can't afford to take time off. So anyway, fortunately, a little bit more stability these days where, I took time off last week. Wasn't really a big deal. I'll take time off a week from tomorrow. I'll take Tuesday off for my son's birthday. It's our wedding anniversary. I'll take some time off for that. But that is the unsexy, non-exciting version of business ownership that they don't talk about always on social media. And you gotta go into it knowing what you're getting into. So anyway, a little bit more of a low-key episode today. I appreciate you guys tuning in to the Good Advice Podcast. Don't forget, if you want to support the podcast, you can always check out our Patreon, patreon.com/goodadvice. So appreciate those of you who've listened to the podcast long-term, and for our business sponsors. Got about 10 of them who sponsor the podcast, and it is a great pleasure and an honor to work and collaborate with those businesses. So thank you to those businesses as well. And all that to say, that's today's Good Advice. Thanks for listening. See you later.